It's a great pleasure to be talking to you, Glenda, today. Could you please introduce yourself and what do you do for business?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here. My name is Glenda Sparrow, and I'm a certified health coach and certified holistic coach. And so what I do with that is I combine all of the pieces of our general lifestyle into ways to help clients live a happier, more fulfilled life. And we'll get into some of that. But I was in supply chain management for over 20 years and left that career just in February of this year, which was not great timing to go off and start my own business on my own. But who knew we were going to be dealing with a global pandemic? So it's been challenging, but I have been coaching for some time while I was still working the corporate job and trying to do both, and left the corporate world to really spend my time and energy helping other people feel better, because it's something that I struggled with myself for many years and had to figure things out on my own. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that really struggle with stress, anxiety, and depression. And so I help people with those specific areas. I also work with clients on career development, relationships, and goal setting, action planning, that kind of a thing. But my main focus is really on folks that are really struggling with stress, anxiety, and depression.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So the first question, what type of coaching do you do?
Well, I utilize the health coach certification that I have and really help people who are stressed, anxious, or depressed. And the way that works is, sometimes somebody might just want to lose weight, and that's fine. I can help them with that. But typically there are bigger, deeper things that are going on with a person that have prevented them from really achieving their greatness and really finding their true, authentic selves. So we get pretty deep when I work with clients, and several are quite surprised, even if I'm doing some business consulting and we start talking about mindset and beliefs. Folks are like, well, I wasn't really thinking we were going to talk about those types of things, but it's absolutely critical to dig into what a person is really thinking about themselves and about others around them and about the world to be able to achieve the results that they're looking for.
Let me ask you a difficult question. Like, what made you leave or walk away from 20 years of experience in the supply chain management to starting your life coaching career?
When I really started to uncover things for my own personal journey, I was struggling with some different areas. I had a vice president that I worked for tell me that some of the ways that I were not necessarily looked upon quite favorably by others in the workplace. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was truly like somebody had taken the entire foundation that I had built of who I was and who I wanted to be and just knocked that foundation out from underneath me. And I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was always a very hard worker, very disciplined, and thought that everybody else should be as well. So I started doing some deep work within myself and finding other ways to think, other ways to kind of process what was going on with my thoughts and with my responses and reactions. And in learning that, it helped me to see people differently, to see others around me in a way that I had never seen people before. I always said that I was not so much of a people person, that I didn't really like people so much. I'd much prefer to spend time with my dog. And while some of that is certainly still true, as far as my dog anyways, when you can really tap in and understand how people work and what causes people to behave one way versus another way, and to understand the care and nurturing that people need at their core level, that a lot of them aren't really capable of giving themselves. And you can understand the wounding that people are carrying around with them that a lot of times they're not even aware of. So I started pivoting the way that I was interacting with people that worked on my team and with others in the workplace. And I started to enjoy that piece of it far more than just working on the numbers and just making sure, of course, it was still important to hit our monthly goals and quarterly goals and all of that. But I really found a love for helping my team members become better people. And not just so that they were better performers in the workplace, but of course, that was something that happened at the same time, but helping them be able to tap in and learn some of the tools that I had learned. In fact, I would even start team meetings with just a quick, maybe 30-second to 1-minute meditation to see the way that the entire vibe in the room went from chaotic and just messy kind of a feeling to really being calm, and we were able to get more done that way. So that really made me want to take that shift and spend all of my time focusing on helping other people.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, let me ask you another question here. How difficult was it to transition from your desk daily job to a life coach?
It was so hard. And I think one of the biggest things that has been a challenge for me, and I'm building a network of other entrepreneurs, of course, but one of the biggest challenges that I had is that I had always built very strong teams. I had folks that were working around me that were just brilliant at their particular areas where I could bounce ideas off of somebody. So now if I'm writing a blog or if I'm trying to figure out how to do something technical, before I could just call in one of my team members and say, hey, can you help me out with this? Or what do you think about this? Or here's an idea that I have this is kind of where I'm going with it. What do you think? Could this be better? And I don't have that. I mean, my dog is a great coworker, but she, isn't very helpful when it comes to something that I'm having a challenge with, or I'm stuck on, or I can't find a word that I'm looking for. So that's been one of the hardest pieces. And then of course too, it's all on me. I don't have anybody else to turn to if there's a lot of extra work that needs to be done. So certainly, there's available assistance out there, and I'll get there. But it's awesome to be able to have that responsibility. But at the same time, there aren't sick days. It's all on me to put the effort in and the work in to help my clients achieve their goals.
Perfect. Let me ask you another question here. Like you had experience with corporate and those companies for 20 years. So basically you had a good grasp and a good understanding of the risks and the challenges of managing your own business. How courageous were you when you decided to start your own business?
I would say that it took a lot of courage, and being an entrepreneur is not for the weak at heart. It's a lot of risk. And, typically if somebody might be in an accounting role, or they might be in a marketing role or sales role or supply chain role, there's typically, that's your focus, is that area. And to be an entrepreneur, you really have to tap into all of it. Being in supply chain management, we used to always joke that we would save the rainbows and butterflies, is what we called it, to the marketing teams and the sales teams. Let them do the creative work. We were facts and data. Give us the numbers, let us sort out, do the logistics, figure it out. And everything was logic based. So yeah, it definitely takes a lot of courage and a lot of knowledge in all areas, because it's not just one when you're an entrepreneur.
Perfect. Let's get back to our topic. What does depression look like for you? Okay, take your time. Okay,
Yeah,
excuse me, I can switch off my video like to give you more quality on your side, okay? So
to
no
do
problem.
what?
Yeah, I may switch off my video like this. So no problem at all. Continue, okay?
Okay,
Yeah, fine.
gotcha. So depression for me has looked like a lot of different things. For the most part, it tends to start with how I might be living. So if I'm not really following the 4 pillars of my program that was completely built because this has been what works for me, and it definitely works for other people. So if I'm not eating well, if I'm not sleeping well, if I'm not hitting the gym or working out and getting daily movement in, if I'm not keeping control of my thoughts, it starts creeping in. And for me, it usually starts creeping in on the thoughts. It can be something as simple as, maybe I put something out there on social media and I thought that it was going to get a lot of attention because it was really great information that was helpful, and maybe nobody liked it. And so then I start, the thoughts will start in. And this can happen with absolutely anything or nothing, which is the crazy part about depression. So for me, it usually starts with the thoughts, and my head starts spinning about why something isn't good enough, or why I don't feel good enough, why I don't feel worthy of what I'm doing or where I'm at in my life. And so it usually starts with the thoughts. And then if it proceeds, if I don't notice that and bring awareness to it right away, and that is one of the key things, is that just because I'm a health coach doesn't mean that depression still doesn't stop by to say hello. However, if I can recognize it and bring awareness to it as early as I can, as soon as I notice some of those thoughts going on in my head, I can prevent it from getting worse. If I think back to the days where I wasn't able to do that so easily, it can truly snowball into a complete total body. There's no energy to do anything, to the point where in the mornings when I wake up, I don't even want to move. I just want to sink into the mattress and just disappear. Um, I can get to where there really feels like there's no purpose in doing anything. Like there's even no purpose in living. And this is kind of a funny thing to say. And I never really realized how odd it was until I was speaking with a counselor one time. And she asked me if I'd ever considered suicide. And my very straight-faced response was, I've thought about it, but when I feel that badly, I feel so bad and so worthless that I would even screw that up. And so, of course, she was like, whoa, 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 that's bad. Like, we need to talk about that some more. So, we did, and I was able to see the other side of that. But it can be really dark, and just really the sun can be shining outside, but not in me. And it's really bad if I don't keep control of it and keep it from getting out of hand.
Yeah. Does depression affect everyone in the same way?
Absolutely not. And that's what's so interesting, is that I think in the United States, there are over 16 million people who have been classified as having depression. So if you think about that, that's only the people that have gone and actually received a diagnosis. And I can tell you that for a lot of my life, I felt the same exact way. I had seen counselors for different things that might have been going on in my life, whether it have been I went for a work-related stress issue, or when I was getting divorced, or when I went through several miscarriages and didn't quite know what that meant in my life. If I wasn't having children, how was I going to live? Because, I was very type A. All of my life was supposed to follow a specific pattern, and that was completely disrupted. So never in those times was I ever classified as being depressed. So, it does impact people very differently. For some people, it means that they can't sleep. For others, it means that they just want to sleep all the time. For some people, it means that they can't eat. Others, they just want to eat all the time. Some people simply walk around most of their days with a low-grade sort of depression going on that they don't even realize, because to them, that's their normal. And let me just say that I'm not a licensed medical professional or counselor or therapist or anything like that. This is just speaking from my experience and knowledge. But yeah, depression hits people and affects people very differently, just like stress does or anxiety does. It's different for all of us. And while some people may have similar experiences or similar symptoms at different times, it's very unique to each person.
Yeah. Let's go to your program, Kicking Depression's Ass. What are your 4 main pillars?
The 4 main pillars of kicking depression's ass is sleep, mindset, food, and movement. And as I alluded to a little bit earlier, those were all put together simply because it's what works for me. And I can be doing great on 2 or 3 of those pillars, but if I'm kind of slacking on the 4th, I can start to feel the effects of that. And so when I first started coaching, I was a little bit all over the place. Like, I wanted to help people with everything that I felt qualified to help them with. And I was kind of given some thought to my story and, what have I experienced in my life that I can really help people with. And that's what it was. It was being able to take those 4 pillars and putting them all together to really help people kick the depression, and not saying that it's ever going away completely, because that's not the case. Depression, anxiety, and stress are all very real things that people experience. But these pillars help folks to see that they don't have to be a victim of how they've been living before. There are a lot of positive influences and positive choices that they can make every single day. And so it's not the 4 pillars and the program that I use to help people is not simply just, I want to lose weight, I want to lose 10 pounds, and then they're done, they're back to what they were doing before. That doesn't work. You really have to make it a lifestyle and behavior changes to see the great results.
Yeah, that's so interesting. What effect does natural food have on the mind and the body?
Natural foods is something that, for many years I have been into working out and thinking that I was trying to be health conscious, and would say that I was eating pretty well, and I was. But it wasn't until I completed my primal health coach certification that I really realized the true effect that eating natural foods, and when I say natural foods, those are things as nature intended them. So, and certainly there are a lot of folks that are vegans or vegetarians, and even when you look at the foods that a lot of vegans and vegetarians eat, they might not be natural based. So you hear people say, eat things directly out of the ground, eat things like how they grew. So if you think about it that way, that means trying to do your best to eliminate absolutely anything that's processed. And by eliminating foods that are processed, or at least avoiding them for the most part, because trust me, I still love pizza and I still love ice cream, but I'm not getting into those things every single day. I'm doing it on occasion when I really think that I want it, knowing what the impact the next day or a couple of days later could be if I go eat a pizza tonight. So if you're eating natural foods, good vegetables and tons of vegetables, fruits, those are great too. Unless you have certain health conditions that cause, have problems with sugar, then fruits might need to be avoided. But eating natural meats and trying to eat them as freshly as you can without all of the extra hormones inside of, or side products that they put in them, it really makes a huge difference in not just how you feel and the weight that you might be carrying, but the way that you think, because of the cognitive function that is impacted by the foods that we're eating. And then also how you're just feeling every single day, and being able to avoid or sometimes even reduce symptoms of a lot of inflammatory diseases like diabetes or autoimmune issues, or even cancers that have been linked to too much sugar consumption, and how those cancer cells feed off of things like sugars. So there's the impacts, the health impacts are tremendous. The changes that you can make just from changing to a natural foods approach.
Okay, let me ask you another question here. Like, you are suggesting that people drop pizzas, people drop all these sugars and all this stuff. Like, why does living a healthy lifestyle go through all of these blocks and, like suffering and the challenge and like, getting yourself away from what you like?
So I never use the word diet, and I never say to eliminate completely. I think that it's fine to have pizza every once in a while. What's not okay is eating fast food every single day, eating fried chicken every single day. I mean, there's a time and a place for everything, and everything in moderation, right? So enjoy ice cream if you're really wanting some ice cream, unless you have an issue with dairy, of course, right? And there's a lot of people who do. So it's more about understanding the actual impact that foods have on your body, that it's not simply if I eat a pizza or if I eat ice cream that I'm going to put on a few extra pounds around my middle. Really, that's the least bit of things that people should be concerned about when they think about what foods they're consuming. It's how it impacts your body and your mind, which most people don't have any idea how what you're eating, how your brain is impacted, and the true connection between your gut and your mind.
Perfect. If someone is noticing poor cognition, brain fog, or mood issues, how do the four pillars help?
Well, certainly the foods approach to that is a big one, because anything that you're consuming in your gut is impacting what's going on in your brain. So that's a big piece. Sleeping is another one. You know, most people don't realize how important it is to sleep. And if if you're not sleeping well, not just if you're, you know, laying in bed for a certain number of hours each night, but if you're not getting good, solid, restful sleep, the impact that that has on your cognitive function and even your moods. I used to say a long time ago, when I would travel for work, the guys would go out after dinner every night. And for me, I had to make sure that I went home, and I called it my personality sleep. Because if I wasn't sleeping well, then the next day I was going to be crabby. I was not one that you wanted to try to get ideas out of, because I was too tired and my brain just wasn't working. And that's a real thing. There's real evidence behind how sleep impacts your cognitive function, along with the food and your mindset and movement.
Perfect. Let's come to movement. What is the role of movement?
I use the word movement when I'm working with clients, because the word exercise has a lot of negative impact behind it for a lot of people. A lot of folks think that exercising or working out is simply for people who want to look good or who want to lose weight. And that's not the case. Daily movement is critical for how our bodies need to function. And what that movement, daily movement, might be could be very different for every person. And so I like to work with clients on where they're at, challenge them, because certainly being in our comfort zone all the time is not great for many reasons. But you don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to be throwing weights around, which is something I love to do. I love lifting, but not everybody likes that. So doing things like a daily walk for 20 to 60 minutes, doing things like push-ups or plank, and when I say push-ups, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to get into a full military style push-up if that's not where you're at yet. That should be the primary goal to get there. But I start clients off, if they need to, even doing push-ups angled against a wall, and then slowly, you know, getting them down to where they're maybe using their kitchen counter or dining room table, to where they get lower and lower to the ground. So it's important to work with people where they're at and using what they have available in their homes. Even doing something like throwing some books in a suitcase and, you know, moving that around a little bit is helpful to the mind and the body.
Perfect. Okay, let's go to the next part. How are people, or when exactly are people able to change their mindset?
People can change their mindset right now. And that is a huge myth that, and I was one of them. I thought, when I mentioned the story about my VP just completely destroying the foundation of who I was, um, my initial response to that was, this is just how I am. I can't be any other way. I was in my mid 30s at that point, and was like, I can't change now. This is who I am. And what I learned from doing some research is that that was absolutely not the case. And so I found something, and I actually found this online, cognitive behavior therapy. And it is used by a lot of psychologists and counselors. And what that is simply identifying a thought as it's going through your mind, recognizing it, stopping that thought, and then choosing another route. So a great example that I'll use that I think everybody can resonate with is, if I were to bump into something, and I've always been a very clumsy person. My parents told me when I was little that I was going to grow out of it and find some grace. I don't think that that's happened yet. So when I would bump into something, instead of just saying ow and moving on with it, I would go into all of this negative self-talk about, oh, you stupid idiot, and many, many other far more colorful and hurtful words. And I would sit on that for far too long, about how dumb I was and what an idiot and all these other things. Instead of now, when I bump into something, I'll simply say, that hurt, and laugh, because trust me, my natural instinct is still to go to those old types of thoughts that I used to use before, but I stop it and smile, like, don't go there, you know better. Because once you start that sort of a thought pattern, it's very easy to keep going down that nasty spiral of all these ways that we talk to ourselves. So if you think about how you would talk to a friend or a coworker if they are going through something, or even if they just bump into a wall, it's thinking about it that way. And almost everybody is far harsher on ourselves than we would ever be with somebody else. So changing your thoughts and reframing narratives is absolutely doable, starting immediately.
Let me ask you a question here. Like, do our minds train us or we train our minds?
Chicken or the egg, right? I think that we pick up from, even in utero, things that are going on around us. There are environmental things that impact how we think, the foods that we're eating, chemicals that we're absorbing, right? These all have an impact on our neurotransmitters. And we do have the ability, though, to change the way that our thoughts are thinking. We change the way that our cells are operating in our bodies by how we're thinking, how we're eating, how much we're sleeping, and how much we're moving. These are all very important in so many different ways, because just because you might have some sort of a disease going on right now, you might have an autoimmune issue right now, you might have type 2 diabetes right now, you can change how your body is functioning by following the 4 pillars and implementing those into your life. And that includes the way that you think. So yeah, I mean, you can choose to stay doing what you've always done, or choose to live a different life, choose to think different thoughts, and choose to really guide where you want to go, because your mind and your body are going to follow.
Perfect. Let me ask you, continue this part. What are narratives and how can we reframe old narratives?
Yeah, so narratives, if you think about them, they're the stories that we've heard, seen, experienced throughout our lives. And for most people, they simply accept those stories as what they are. And they don't yet bring awareness to those narratives and those stories and maybe think about them a different way. So, because you do have the ability to change the way that you think and feel about something, you can change those old narratives that go on in the background of your mind. So, some folks will go as deep as getting into hypnosis to change some of those narratives, and that's not always necessary. It can be helpful for folks, for sure, especially if they've experienced any sort of severe traumas. But even if you think about things that might have happened in your childhood, and if you asked anybody else in your family, they might say that something happened a different way than what you recall from that experience. So you can shift that to realize that, okay, so I might have viewed something happening in a certain way, but I can change the way that I allow that to impact me today. I can change the way that I consider my response to that situation. So a good one that impacts all of us at some point in time is getting our hearts broken, right? I mean, that's happened to us several times in our lifetimes. And when you think about that, you can think, well, I don't want to date anymore. I don't want, it always ends badly. Well, you can change that narrative to think each of those situations, encounters, relationships has been a learning experience for me. There are people that come into our lives and they teach you something about yourself. So, that's a great, easy example of how you can reframe narratives, is to think about, do I want to consider those were all breakups and I'm sad about it, and, boo that person and all whatever other things you might want to say about that person. Or you can think about, what did I learn about myself during that time? And so that's a great way to kind of shift those narratives. And that can be done with just about everything that we've ever experienced that might be spinning around in our heads that we think about. So the first part is to really just bring awareness to those thoughts, to those stories, to those narratives, and then find a way to maybe think about it differently. It's not saying that you're going to tell yourself a lie about it, but change the way that you're allowing that response. And if you think about maybe somebody that broke your heart real bad 15 years ago, and you think about that person now, and maybe you still get sad about it, well, start thinking about it differently, and then your body's going to start feeling differently about it. And you're not going to feel that sadness. And instead, you might have a smile when you think of in appreciation for what you learned during that time.
Let's move to talk about sleep. Why is good sleep so important?
Yeah, so we mentioned that a little bit earlier, but sleep is, most people think, I only need to sleep for a couple hours each night, or, I might be in bed for 6 hours. I'm really only sleeping solidly for an hour or two of that. And they don't really think about how much our bodies and our minds need that good recovery time, that good solid reset. If you think about your cell phone, if your cell phone is just going on day after day after day without being recharged, it's just going to quit on you. We don't allow that for our body. We push and push and push and demand more out of ourselves. And it gets to the point where, you're going to break if you keep doing that. And your body is going to say, nope, we're going to get sick. We're going to have some sort of disease going on. Our cognitive function is going to be a mess. And finally, you're going to crash. So if you can really learn to appreciate that sleep is a good time for reset and recovery, just like your phone needs to be charged every day, your body and your mind need that too. And it impacts everything that we do. And adults need truly 7 to 9 hours every single night of good, solid sleep.
Let's move to your techniques and tools. How do you help clients set and achieve their goals?
The first step of that is to identify what those goals are. And then I like to talk about why those goals are. Because if you can really figure out what's driving somebody to want to do something, it makes all the difference in how you decide to tackle those goals. A lot of times goals need to be broken down into smaller bite-sized chunks. So, somebody might have a goal to lose 50 pounds. And I use the weight example just because it's something that's easy to understand. So if somebody wants to lose 50 pounds, why? And everybody's why is going to be different, but you need to understand why you're trying to achieve a certain goal, to understand what your motivation is going to be behind that. So if that goal is 50 pounds, then you talk about how do we break that into smaller chunks? And every goal needs a due date. Doesn't matter what the goal is, you need to have a specific date in mind for when you want that goal to be achieved. Otherwise, you just keep pushing it out and tomorrow. But if you set a goal and then set smaller chunks for those goals, then it's easier to accomplish those goals and celebrate the wins as they come. So each goal for folks is going to be different. And, like for me, working out is not for a physical reason. It's not that I want to work out to be able to bench press X amount of weight by a certain day. For me, that goal, working out every day, is a lifestyle change. And it's something that I do usually 5 or 6 days a week. And I was struggling. There was a period of time about a year and a half ago where I was really struggling with getting out of bed. So I have a card that I have posted in my house that says, no snooze. I do not negotiate with myself. Get up, work out every day. So that's where when you understand what the goal is, that I'm not working out simply to lose weight or to hit a certain bench press weight, then you figure out how to tackle that goal and how to self-motivate with that goal.
Perfect. How do you help to increase self-confidence?
Yeah, so that gets really into the mindset piece of it. There are so many people, and I was one of them for most of my life, that I really struggled with self-confidence. I never felt good enough. I never felt worthy. I never thought that anybody wanted to hear what I had to say. Um, I had a lot of social anxiety because of my lack of self-confidence. And so helping people tap into the mindset piece of that and what might have caused some challenges for them in the past and where those stories came from. Sometimes it can be something as simple as they had a teacher tell them something one time in second grade, and they're holding on to that story and believing it about themselves. So when you tap into what might have caused some of those issues for people, and to really understand that there's another way to think about them, you get into reframing those narratives, then that can help build up self-confidence to where folks feel really empowered in themselves, and they find that self-love that they need to feel better about themselves, so that they don't worry so much about what other people are thinking about them. They're strong in who they are.
Perfect. How do you decrease daily stress? And isn't stress something normal?
A lot of people think that it is. And stress certainly is something that we should feel in the experience on occasion. When the coronavirus first started and nobody knew what was going on, that caused stress in everybody. And that was an understandable form of stress because it was something that we haven't experienced. So that type of stress is certainly normal. The stress becomes a problem when you are dealing with it every single day. And the reason that it becomes such a problem is because if you think back to caveman times, when the saber-toothed tiger was chasing you, you had the stress response kick in your body. And that stress response causes all sorts of chemicals and changes in your body. You sweat, you have to go to the bathroom. Like, your body is doing this for a reason, for a very primal reason. And it helped you get away from the tiger. When the cortisol was kicking in, it kept you awake at night so that you were on alert if the tiger was going to come for you. Folks are living with that kind of response in their mind and their body every single day, and they're not aware of it because they think that it's normal, and it's not. To feel that every day is not normal. So when you can tap into recognizing that response and choosing different thoughts, choosing a different way to respond to something, it really makes a difference in the mind and the body and brings a sense of calm.
Yeah. How do you create healthy habits?
Healthy habits, you got to get into that why. Why, what is your motivation and what is your goal? What are you striving for? And so you tackle those a little bit at a time. When I coach people in the Kicking Depression's Ass program, I never just say, here's the 4 pillars, here's all the work, just go and do it, because that's not going to create a lasting change. So you start by making small modifications and knowing what your goal is and what your why is. So when you start making those small changes and keeping that why into focus, it really helps those habits become second nature, so that you don't think about them as much as you might have before. So it's just little bite-sized pieces at a time to build up that response and make it very natural for making different decisions each day.
Perfect. How do you improve relationships?
When you can improve the relationship that you have with yourself, first and foremost, that changes your relationships that you have with coworkers, friends and family, and significant others, even friends, right? So first you have to be able to be taking care of your own needs and identifying your own needs, because it seems like so many challenges that people have in any sort of relationship, not just significant other sorts of relationships, come from putting expectations onto somebody that don't necessarily belong there. Having a expectation that somebody else is going to take care of your own needs, your own nurturing, your own healing, and you can't put that on anybody else. That has to be done within first and foremost. I heard a great podcaster one time say that self-soothing cannot be outsourced. And that is so true. And you can take those words and put that onto so much of what we do when it comes to interacting with other humans. We expect people to treat us a certain way. We expect people to do things for us that we're not doing for ourselves. So if we start that self-healing and that self-nurturing, then we don't have those expectations to put on other people.
Perfect. Okay, now you have just told us the 4 pillars of your program. Like, can't the people just suddenly start to feel better and manage their life in a better way?
Yeah, they can. And they can start applying just from listening to this right now. They can start making those changes immediately and see how that works. For a lot of people, they need additional support. They have a lifetime of living the way that they have, and they need some additional support, encouragement, and most importantly, accountability. If you were to take somebody that wants to lose 10 pounds and just say, go do it, we know that there's 1,000 different ways that you can go try to lose 10 pounds. But if you have somebody that is by your side, hearing you, listening to you, helping you through each step of the process, holding your hand virtually, if you will, to ensure that you have the support that you need and that accountability to take each step that's necessary to get to where you want to be, that makes all the difference in the world. There's nothing that I teach people that can't be found online. Everything that I teach is easy to find on Google. But what's missing from Google is that true support, that true caring and connection, and the desire to want somebody to be there to help them hit their goals and achieve whatever it is that they're looking to achieve.
Perfect. How can listeners work with you?
I would love to work with some of your listeners. They can find me on my website at glendasparrow.com. And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at Glenda Sparrow Coaching. And I'm also on LinkedIn at Glenda Sparrow.
Let me ask you a business question, like something important. Okay, now you started your project after some time in another job. Do you think other people should focus and try to start their business earlier? Uh, you get my question?
Say that again. Should they start
Yeah,
their own business sooner?
Yeah.
I think that that's a very individual question. For me, I know that there was a lot of work that I had to do behind the scenes before I felt really ready to have my business going on its own. And it really depends on what the business is too. There are certainly a lot of folks that are working corporate jobs or working for somebody else where what they might want to do on their own could conflict with what that business is that they're getting paid 9 to 5 for. So you want to make sure that you're not crossing any boundaries there that could get you in trouble with your current employer. But there's a lot of behind the scenes work that has to be done to get a business fully up and running. So it takes some time and it takes a lot of work to put into to get things going, as I'm sure you know from your business as well.
Okay, from 1 to 10, how much do you advise other people or like young people to start their own businesses?
If you can figure out a way to do something that you are passionate about, that actually makes you some money that you can do without reporting to somebody else, do it. Because I think that too many corporations stifle their employees and don't allow true creativity and true growth. They just want somebody sitting in the chair, pushing the buttons, doing that job. So that hurts our souls, in my opinion. I think that if you can do something, and even if it's not doing it full time yet, if you can find some sort of a side hustle, side gig that you can do that really allows you to use your passions, do it. If your paying job, you are working for somebody else, allows you to do all of the things that you want to do, that's awesome. But if you can do it for yourself, even better, because then the sky's the limit. You have nobody holding you back but yourself from achieving whatever dreams they are that you might have.
Perfect. What else would you like to say?
I just have to thank you so much for having me on. I love your show, and I'm very happy to have been here today.
Thank you so much for your time and help. You're a very gentle person.
Oh, thank you. So are you.